יש אישור, היה לי נפל שם. יירוט אחד, יירוט שני, יירוט שלישי, ומאחורי הבניינים שם יש אישור, היה לי נפל שם. יירוט אחד, יירוט שני, יירוט שלישי, ומאחורי הבניינים שם יש אישור, היה לי נפל שם.
Well, so they are taking it quite spiritedly. Sanjay, you were speaking to some residents who seemed quite okay some time back when the calls came. But what are the common Israelis saying? Do they believe they need to finish this off? Do they believe the regime needs to go? Do they agree with Bibi Netanyahu?
Oh, yes. I mean, there are divisions, political divisions within Israel, of course. It's a very sort of energetic and buzzing democracy. But on this, people are one. There is no difference of opinion that anyone can see over dealing with Iran. And this is a matter really that goes beyond politics. This is existential. It is the nuclear program of Iran that's not an immediate threat to the U.S. The ballistic missiles are not a threat to the U.S. It's Israel that is in the line of fire. And Israel has been hit by ballistic missiles, suffered serious damage. 28 Israelis were killed last year in Iranian missile attacks, and hundreds were injured. So Israel has had a taste of Iranian war aggression, as of course Iran is having a taste of Israeli aggression to a far, far greater extent right now as we speak. But here within Israel, people seem to be quite unified and quite determined that they must prevail. There is a curious factor here, Anand, when we look at Israeli response on the street. Consider the laws in Israel. Every Jewish Israeli has compulsorily to be trained in the army. Consider that Israel has a population of about 6 million Jewish people above the age of 18, which means that just about every adult is trained in war. They are used to battleground situations. They have been trained for this, and they have been deployed. And this is over a period of several years. So when we are thinking of the civilian population of Israel, we are in effect actually speaking of a military population. These are all military people. So they are not likely to get scared in a hurry.
Right. We've just got, I'm going to hand it to Akanksha. Akanksha, pictures coming through from Bahrain that the US base, Al Udeid, the air base there has been targeted. Al Jufair base in Bahrain has been targeted. It houses a US naval base, and there's a missile that's landed. I'm going to hand it over to you for now. Take it away, please.
So as Anand was highlighting, that it is now going to be the US bases in the Middle East which will be bearing the brunt of it. 9 US bases is what we are looking at. Bahrain, Qatar, Iraq, many of them in fact are housing. But you know, apart from these countries that you're talking about in the Middle East, you're also looking at those places which are housing NATO bases. You have an Air Force base in Turkey. Will Turkey also get involved? You have Djibouti, which is very close to the Horn of Africa. All of those bases are going to be playing a very critical role. Those visuals, in fact, coming in, as you can see, there's been an attack on Bahrain as well. UAE, as we speak, has shut its airspace. That is another critical airbase of the United States. Let me quickly take this forward with Ambassador Pinak Ranjan Chakravarti, who continues to stay with us. Ambassador, this is bound to have a snowball effect now, as we can see. It's already playing out today itself.
I think we are actually seeing live the escalation. But I don't know how far this escalation will go. Does Iran have the capacity to pierce the air defense systems of these American air bases? And the Americans would have prepared for all this. So I don't think, you know, as you said, two missiles have already been intercepted and destroyed. So how many more does Iran have to throw at all these sites? And there are many sites, American sites. So there are a lot of ifs and buts here. But on a personal note, you know, I can imagine the situation, because I lived in a house in Tel Aviv when I was there, which had a bomb shelter. And those were the days when Saddam Hussein was threatening to attack Israel with chemical warheads. So I remember we were all told to, you know, we were provided actually with gas masks and told to equip our bomb shelters and others which were gas proof actually. So I still remember. So I can imagine what the people in Israel are feeling. And this is something familiar in the sense that, of course, there were no attacks. But today, I think the Israelis are a very resilient and a hardened lot. And, they are used to all this fighting. If they were not resilient, they wouldn't have lasted for so many years as a free country, given the kind of hostility they have faced in their region. And of course, Iran remains the last bastion of this hostility because Iran's official policy is that they do not recognize Israel and they would like to wipe out Israel from the map of the earth. That's their policy.
Right. I want to quickly bring in Sanjay. Sanjay, Ambassador has just now highlighted what a critical point he's made is that this has happened far too many times. We've heard this happen in 2001 in Kabul, in 2003 as well, when Iraq was being invaded. And there's the same similar playbook being followed that we must prevent a future catastrophe. There's an evil regime which is being fought. And what's extremely ironical is that the current US president arrived on the promise that he's going to put an end to US interventionism in the Middle East. That certainly has been one U-turn we've seen happen in the second time around now that he's come back to the White House. Do you think that Iran is going to be that last bastion, as Ambassador also highlighted?
Well, last bastion is hard to say. We've had claims repeated a number of times, needless to say, from President Trump that he has stopped 8 wars. There will have to be a count on how many he has started as well. And who can say with any confidence that this will be the last? This is just a little more than a year into his presidency. But this is something that has been building up for some time. And we are seeing really now the inevitable here, that whole build-up from the U.S. The Abraham Lincoln was not sent just to be called back, nor the Gerald Ford now, which is positioned very close to Israel to aid in its defense. This is now a situation that really is going to go to the finish. This is not something that can be compromised upon really by either. This is going to be the end of the regime, or is going to be the end of the US-Israeli intervention. I think we can take a fair guess which of those two scenarios is more likely. But the clear aim and the first aim of the US, and this President Trump spelled out quite clearly, is to, short of that military erasure, to provoke a revolt within the IRGC, within the Iranian government, and to provoke a rebellion or encourage a rebellion among the people, so that in the face of this assault, people rise within Iran and it begins to crack from within. If that can happen by not just the show of force, but by the use of force to some limited extent, and if this were to provoke a rebellion within the government and from outside the government, from the people, then this would be the relative shortcut that the US certainly would look for, that President Trump would look for. That
so,
is
in
not
fact,
a certain
just want to take our viewers through those visuals that we are getting in. There's an attack on Bahrain also, but that missile was intercepted. In fact, information coming in that Qatar has also intercepted 2 Iranian missiles as per an official. This is information that's still trickling in. How long will this last is still unknown. But remember, right now, as we speak, the United States has amassed the largest invasion force in the Middle East. This is the largest ever since the Iraq war that was observed. I want to quickly bring in Ambassador Pinakaranjan Chakrabarti, who continues to stay with us. Ambassador, I want to bring you in on the point about ending US interventionism in the Middle East. That was a promise that was made. Remember, the Democrats have been asking the Trump administration why they have been so opaque, especially when it comes to their policy towards Middle East. In fact, Chuck Schumer, the Senate minority leader, also went on to accuse Donald Trump of hiding behind the cover of war, because this is a year which is very critical to the Republicans, as we all know, especially the fact that they will be headed into midterms.
Well, I think what President Trump is speaking is, of course, with an eye on the midterm elections. The war is by the way, in one section of the Americas, the war is popular. because they like this war, because America is showing, flexing its muscle, showing that it is still a global hegemon and it can do anything it likes in wherever it wants across the planet. We've seen Venezuela. We've seen now, in fact, Mr. Trump is saying that the USA might attempt a friendly takeover of Cuba. This is the latest that we have heard. Now, this is the kind of thing, although he talks of stopping wars and his aspiration for a Nobel Prize has not ended. But then, geopolitics is not that simple. Stopping wars is not that simple. Afghanistan and Pakistan are also at each other's throats. So I don't think that is geopolitics will always trump those political rhetoric that we hear from time to time. And Israel is a different kettle of fish. I mean, I think Israel and the US are probably the closest allies in the world. And they have a different equation. They have a different kind of an understanding. So I don't think that, and since both of them want to eliminate Iran's regime and the nuclear facilities and missile facilities, so they have naturally cooperated. And I think as you can see, the first attacks on Iran were launched from Israel and not from any aircraft carrier.
And since you speak of Israel, let me quickly bring in Sanjay, who is very much in Israel. In fact, he's been there ever since Prime Minister paid that visit. And that's why, Sanjay, everybody here on the MEA group is already asking the question, did the Israeli side share any information with the Indian side with regards to the attack being in the final stages of planning? I guess we'll never know. But what was the sense that you were gathering when you arrived in Israel?
Well, as you point out, this is not something that's likely to be known whether Netanyahu briefed Prime Minister Modi, unless at some stage either Netanyahu or the Prime Minister or the top ministers from either country comes up with any such information. But clearly it was a visit that came just before this. Netanyahu would certainly have known that this is coming, given the preparations and given the extensive networking with the US allies of Israel, to see that this is in place. So all of this would have been in place when the Indian PM visited. The fact is that we have heard from the MEA officials that Mr. Modi did try to prevail upon Mr. Netanyahu to say that the peaceful solution is always the best one. That would have been polite talk, certainly heard politely, responded to politely, and all the time Netanyahu was preparing for this war. Whether that was also known to Prime Minister Modi is something that's awaited. Certainly that is not something that has been shared publicly or even privately with very many so far.
All right, as we speak, in fact, an official statement coming in from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Iran. This is what the official statement, in fact, it's a detailed statement that's coming in. But just to give our viewers a quick gist of what it says that the Iranian nation will respond decisively and the aggressors will regret their criminal act. Now, let me quickly go back to Ambassador Pinak Chakrabarti as well. Ambassador, do you think that this is now an all-out war? And in terms of referring to Prime Minister's recent visit to Israel, for a country which has always prided itself in its strategic autonomy, does it leave India in a very tricky position at the moment?
No, I don't think so. I think India-Israel relations have gone over many, many years. Ever since we opened our mission there, diplomatic mission in 1992, and I was there from 95 to 99, and I have seen what kind of collaborations that started, and it has gone much beyond that now. So I think India-Israel relations are quite solid. The speculation about whether Prime Minister Netanyahu would have told Prime Minister Modi that yes, we are planning to attack, I don't think any country does that. But if they would have discussed the situation, there was no doubt about it, that Iran situation would have been discussed, and Prime Minister Netanyahu would have said very clearly that, this is very difficult for us, and we have to deal with Iran, etc. But of course, he wouldn't tell that this is the date and time on which we will launch all the strikes. And India would have maintained its stock position that try and avoid military conflict. You are already talking to the Iranians in Geneva, sort it out there across the table. That's been the stock Indian sort of position for a long time. So I don't think that we can speculate very much beyond this.
Okay. So I want to quickly refer to the detailed statement which we have and maybe bring in both of you over here. It says that our sacred homeland and beloved nation, Iran, ancient civilization building, has once again been subjected to a cowardly military aggression by the US and Zionist regime. This morning on the threshold of Nowruz, on the 10th day of the holy month of Ramadan, the United States and the Zionist regime flagrantly violated Iran's territorial integrity and national sovereignty and targeted a number of objectives and defensive infrastructure as well as non-military facilities in various cities of our country. The renewed military aggression by the US and the Zionist regime against Iran has taken place under circumstances in which Iran and the US were engaged in a diplomatic process. This is the key critical aspect. Sanjay, weigh in on that. Is this an indication that Iran feels extremely violated, also betrayed in terms, because the diplomatic process, as they have referred to, was very much on in Geneva? Is this also indicating a complete breakdown, a complete collapse of the ongoing diplomatic process in Geneva?
Most certainly, there could be no convincing break of a diplomatic process than the launch of war. We had this threat hanging over the talks for some time now, and we heard from the Omanian foreign minister, who has been playing mediator here, and his report on this situation was that progress has been made and that Iran is prepared to make some concessions on the nuclear front, which is to stay an undertaking not to stockpile its enriched uranium, and that it will not be enriched beyond an agreed level. Of course, we have an IAEA report saying that that level has been breached already. But we do have a statement from Oman that has been playing mediator, saying that the process was underway. Talks had been planned for next week, tentatively in Vienna and tentatively for Friday. Then also we had the diplomatic process continuing in a sense also between the US and Israel. We had a visit by Secretary of State Rubio planned for Israel on Monday. It's not clear whether that will take place and whether that will take place with a renewed agenda given the new situation. It's unlikely that it will, also for simple reasons of airspace closure and safety. So the diplomatic process is now out the window. This is now all-out war, and the attempt now will be from the US and from Israel certainly to stop short of none of their three aims, one being regime change, the other nuclear disarmament, and the third an end to Iran's missile capacity, particularly ballistic missile capacity.
Ambassador Chakrabarti, the statement also says history bears witness that Iranians have never submitted to the aggression of foreign powers, and this time as well the Iranian nation will respond decisively and the aggressors will regret their criminal act. You mentioned Venezuela. I also want to bring in Afghanistan and Syria. All of these countries, can there even be a comparison drawn to these countries, or Iran is going to be a far more intimidating sort of adversary that the United States is looking at, given the clout it has and the kind of nuclear power that it wields at the moment?
No, Iran is certainly in a different category. It's a much larger country with a great deal of, patriotic fervor, a civilizational past, which is ancient. Afghanistan is a much smaller country, but even there, the Americans had to run away because they couldn't manage. So I don't think there will be boots on the ground here and hence there are a lot of ifs and buts about regime change. I mean, will the Iranian people will rise up as one? Unlikely, but there will be revolt, there will be unhappiness. I think they are banking on the fact that the Iranian people have suffered a lot under the sanctions, and the economy is really in very bad shape, and people are, smarting from the economic impact of the sanctions, and now the war will create further problems. So I think the hope is that the Iranian people will rise up and somehow overthrow the regime. I don't know whether that will happen because
yes,
the
stay
Iranian...
with me, Ambassador. I don't know if you can watch the live visuals that are trickling in right now. These are the latest visuals we are bringing for our viewers from Tehran, where we can see the aftermath of that missile strike. Completely decimated that entire location. Remember, in Tehran, this was close to the offices of Khamenei, and what we also, you can see the debris now. It's been reduced to a heap of rubble, and as we all know, this is just one location in Iran which has been targeted. Isfahan, Natanz, there are other locations as well in Iran which have been targeted, along with a host of other countries where we all know there are US troops as well. So US bases in Middle East now are on the radar of Iran as we speak. Ambassador, back to you. Please finish your point.
Simply making was that it's uncertain. I do not know. I do not have intelligence from within Iran as to what is the mood of the people, but I can only, rationalize some of the events that have taken place, and that tells me that that the Iranian people, are they ripe for a revolt? Is that the assessment of the Americans? CIA, Mossad, and Israelis. So I don't know. I mean, if that happens, then of course they will achieve their goal of regime change. And then what happens? Do you bring in the son of the earlier Shah of Iran? Is he popular? Can he manage? But then if you plant somebody from outside and protect that regime by force, which Israel and America may want to do, so that their own people are in power there, and totally, disarm, nuclear disarmament, destroy all their nuclear facilities and not go down that route at all, and then destroy all the missile facilities, etc. But I don't know whether that will happen.
No, that is true, because Reza Pahlavi lacks that grassroots connect, as has been highlighted by several Iranians that we've been speaking to. At the most, he still has managed to form that connect with the urban Iranians, but the ones in the hinterland still do not really associate much with him. Sanjay, news also trickling in that Yemen's Iranian-backed Houthi militants have now vowed to resume attacks on shipping route in the Red Sea corridor. This is bound to have a domino effect, as are the announcements now being made. What is the kind of situation we are looking at now, whether it is the Strait of Hormuz or the shipping corridor in the Red Sea?
Well, this has been the great threat from Iran, that is the economic threat, that if they were to block the Strait of Hormuz even for some time, that will have a very strong knock-on effect on oil prices, which, as we know, are very sensitive to the world situation, and particularly to passage of oil through that strait. About 20% of the world's oil supply passes through that strait, and Iran has positioned itself to attack shipping or to restrict it in that strait. And this then again becomes a challenge of timing, how far the Iranian Navy or its Air Force or its missiles can target these ships effectively. Certainly, the US and Israel will be out to protect shipping and see that any blockage here does not last very long. They do have great firepower. We've seen what that can be like already. But this will be a critical economic artery that will need to be protected, because if that is hurt, then the economy is hurt, and that again has knock-on political effects. If people run into shortages, price rises, the war becomes suddenly very unpopular, even at a distance, and even at such a distance as the US. Of course, within the US, this will be an unpopular war for many reasons. We have seen signs of that. But here now the question is the economic fallout of this. And these are just the first few hours. We've seen the decision, the outcome on that fallout will depend upon the resilience of Iran's military capacity.
An advisory being issued, in fact, by the Indian embassy in Qatar as we speak. They've, in fact, just now sent out a word saying everyone's requested to follow the emergency alert by local authorities in the interest of public safety. Everyone is urged to stay away from the vicinity of military sites and stay inside buildings, whether in homes or elsewhere, and not to go out or move except for the utmost necessity to avoid exposure to any risks. Ambassador Chakrabarti, the situation remains on high alert. Clearly, Middle East on the tenterhooks.
Absolutely, and I think we'll have to watch it minute to minute to see what happens next. But it's not going to stop very soon, that's for sure. And I think this will go on for quite some time. How long, very difficult to predict. It depends on the resilience of the Iranian regime, how long they can fight. So those are some of the constraints on them, because their supply lines, I do not know how good they are, because now they will be all under pressure. The internet is not working, communication will not work. So Iran is under real pressure now, and so they will have to really their backs are to the wall, but they will fight. I mean, there's no way Iran is going to surrender.
All right, stay with me, Ambassador and Sanjay, both, because we're getting in some more breaking inputs. In fact, Israeli officials have confirmed that they have indications of hits on significant figures in the Iranian leadership. This, as the chatter, in fact, grows louder about the whereabouts of Khomeini. Many are saying that he's already hidden in a bunker, but the Israeli officials, the IDF, going on official record to confirm that they have indications to establish the fact that significant figures in the Iranian leadership have been hit. Let me quickly take this forward with Sanjay. Yes, Sanjay, what more can you tell us? All right, we're also getting in reactions from Israel as we speak, because remember, evacuation is also currently on. An Indian student in Israel has also spoken out. I'll quickly play that reaction out for you.
Hi everyone, I'm an Indian student and currently I'm in Tehran. The situation here feels really worst and uncertain. We really don't know what's gonna happen next. We're really grateful that the Government of India and the Ministry of External Affairs are in discussion for our safety. But in the times like these, speed matters a lot. I'm not even able to say these things because the airstrikes are happening and it's getting really worse for us. We just request for the quicker and clear evacuation as soon as possible. Please do not wait for the situation to get worse. Just help us. Just get us out of here as soon as possible.
So that was an Indian student stuck in Tehran, actually. Let me quickly take that forward with Sanjay, who continues to stay. Extremely gut-wrenching to hear those students appealing for help, given that this was an attack which was on expected lines. Sanjay, perhaps the government could have ensured a timely evacuation?
Yes, most certainly, because this was coming. And meanwhile, there is some reason for concern here as well. I've just received an alert here. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. It says rocket and missile fire in your area and get to a shelter within 1.5 minutes. We've just, this minute, in the last few seconds, had this alert. So there is some cause for concern here. But of course, at the moment, it's Iran that's taking the brunt of these attacks. And students and others in Iran certainly would be very concerned. We've heard that very touching appeal a minute back that you played out. And there will be questions asked whether more could have been done to get people out of Tehran, because that was always going to be first in the firing line and get the worst of it. And there is a danger there, but there is a good deal of missile fire now from Iran aimed at Israel. A lot of these missiles are underway as we speak. So there is unrest to varying extents across this whole region. Of course, there is no place that's more alarming to be in at the moment than Tehran.
Sanjay, going to request you to kindly take, cover, because there seems to be an alert issued in that area where Sanjay is currently stationed right now. Situation currently quickly blowing out of control. Let's quickly go across to Iranian activist Eli Jamali, who's joining us live from the United States. Eli, we've connected earlier as well, and I remember in the last conversation we had, you were urging the US for an intervention. Do you see this as the beginning of that intervention, and do you see this as an advent for external powers now to be coming and taking over Iran?
Well, good morning actually from London at the moment.
All
We're
right.
still active
All
in
right.
London, but
Okay.
New York is next week. So what's happening in Iran at the moment is an unfolding of a rescue mission of 90 million people all at once. Of course, it's going to be full of noise. Of course, it's going to be full of bombs. And unfortunately, Iranian people have been waiting for bombs to fall on Iran under a regime that has been killing and targeting people, even in the hospitals over the past 2 months. The death toll in Iran at the hands of this regime has been so much higher than any modern war over long periods of time in the space of 48 hours. The current rescue mission carried out by the Israelis and the American high forces, an incredible army, is a beacon of hope for the Iranian people. The videos coming out of Iran right now, I mean, my heart absolutely goes out to all of the Iranian people who do not have shelter. I mean, this regime has brought in a war without sheltering any Iranians. I mean, they have gone and embedded themselves even in civilian areas of the cities, biggest, most populated cities. And my heart goes out to the lovely Indian student stuck in Tehran who's pleading to the Indian government to help her and rescue her out of that war zone at the moment. But what I wonder is, why was she not rescued during the last 2 months when the most horrific attacks on Iranian people were happening? She was at risk then. She is at risk now. And I pray that she, like all the Iranians who are going to be free soon, are free of this dangers that is facing them. But my heart goes to Iranian people who don't have anywhere to go at the moment in these days. There are the amount of despair and poverty this regime has caused on Iranian people, and the lack of resources on times like this is one of the things that is quite frightening. And like I said, there is no shelters in place for Iranian people other than their homes. So I am reassured with the statement that President Donald Trump made earlier today in White House. The White House released a statement that he encouraged Iranian people to stay at home because they are not the targets. They are obviously surgically targeting IRGC and regime forces and regime members who are actively part of the oppression of Iranian people. Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi also sent a message to the Iranian people reassuring them that this rescue mission is not a war on Iran, and it's a waging act against a terrorist regime that has held Iranian people at gunpoint for the past 47 years, and specifically for the past 2 months. So hopefully this is the beginning of an end for this regime, officially and once and for all.
Right. There's also news that is just coming in. The situation, as we were reporting, is quite tense, and news that is just coming in. Iran's Supreme National Security Council, the government of the Islamic Republic of Iran, has already made arrangements to meet all societal needs, and there is no concern regarding the supply of essential goods. Schools and universities will remain closed until further notice. Banks will continue providing service to the noble people of Iran. Government offices will operate at 50% capacity for the time being. So that's the news that is coming in, the official word that is now coming in from Iran about the steps that are being taken. The Iranian people being assured by Iran's Supreme National Security Council that as far as essentials are concerned, Iran is well equipped and it has made arrangements for that. As far as schools and colleges and universities go, they will remain shut. Workforce at 50%, banks will continue providing services. This is the month of Ramzan that we are talking about, and there's a lot of concern. But this is the news that we have, Sanjay. So the people of Iran being assured by the government of the day there that don't worry, we are in control.
Well, how much weight that assurance carries is uncertain, because there's going to be a difference between rhetoric and reality. As there always is in a war situation, the government will be keen to put out messages of reassurance to calm people down and to prevent any mass panic that then could feed a revolt against the regime itself. So this is a predictable message of reassurance. How much weight it carries, we do not know as of now. We do not know the extent of damage that will be caused over what period of time. Above all, the question whether people begin to crack from within, whether there will be cracks within the government system, within the IRGC, We have seen some reports that there has been an element of disaffection even within the IRGC. This is the testing time now. This is when we will know if and to what extent that may be true at all. Also, there is a question of how much supplies are available with the government. Iran has been hit and hurt with sanctions